Joining me now from Glendale is NBC White House correspondent Aaron Gilchrist, and Gabby Birnbaum, the D.C. correspondent for Nevada Independent, is with me as well. So, Aaron, let's start with you. How important do you think it will be for the Harris-Walz ticket to win over those independent voters in Arizona who make up such a huge percentage of the electorate there?
Well, Garrett, I think it's hard to overestimate the importance of the independent voter here in Arizona. There was just some numbers released that indicated registered independent voters make up about 33% of all registered voters in this state. And so it is a critical group to try to get to and to try to win over. The Harris campaign, for its part, has indicated that it has seen a groundswell of support for the Harris-Walz ticket. In particular, since Vice President Harris became the candidate for the Democrats, they've seen about 20,000 volunteers sign up online to participate one way or another with the Harris campaign. At the same time, when the Vice President and her running mate are here tonight talking to Arizonans, they're going to have to really make sure that they tackle some of the big issues that are important to people here. As we've talked to independent voters, they say that the abortion issue is one that is important here. It's likely to be on the ballot in November, along with Vice President Harris, as well as issues related to the economy. That really has been the number one issue for so many voters here. I want you to hear what some independents told us about their money.
The economy is not in a great spot. Just some kind of a plan. I mean, I know when you're borderline in a recession like we are right now, it's not easy to swing yourself out of it.
For me, like I said, who's going to put money back into my pocket as far as to make it more affordable? Not necessarily lowering me prices, but maybe wages be, higher.
And Garrett, the other big issue here in Arizona has been immigration and border security. I talked to one strategist yesterday who said that really is something that the vice president might want to stay away from, that it's sort of a third rail for Democrats in this area because it's not an issue on which they've been able to win. They've talked mostly about former President Trump tanking the bipartisan border security bill earlier this year. At the same time, the Harris campaign has released a new ad here in Arizona and Nevada that tackles border security, that says she will add border agents if she becomes president, and that she would also crack down on fentanyl and human trafficking. And so it's going to be interesting, Garrett, to see to what degree she talks about that tonight when she's got a stadium filled with Arizona voters.
Very interesting indeed. And Gabby, how important are these states to Democrats? How important should they be? The Biden campaign seemed to be almost writing off the western states, but now you're hearing talk about a western wall, the idea that Democrats should pour more resources into both of these western states.
Yeah, when Biden was at the top of the ticket, I think they knew that their only electoral path based on polls was that blue wall of Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. And that was not something that Nevada strategists wanted to hear. They feel like they have the best organized Democratic Party in the country. They've won close elections before. And so they feel like, particularly with Vice President Harris now at the top of the ticket, her strengths, particularly relative to President Biden, they feel like align exactly with the demographics of the voter base in Nevada. So that would be voters of color and young voters. Those are two groups that Harris is doing better than Biden with. And those are two groups that are disproportionately large compared to other swing states in Nevada. Nevada's a majority minority state. The Southwest in general is younger than the upper Midwest. And so they feel like Harris's strengths dovetail really nicely with the Nevada electorate.
And even Republican strategists and Republican elected officials will say, like, if a race is close in Nevada, the Culinary Union, the Democratic operation in Nevada tends to have a way to find the votes. There could be another close race in the Senate contest there, too. Jackie Rosen's up for re-election. Republicans love their recruit there, Sarah Brown. What can you tell us about the state of that race and how closely it'll be tied to the top of the ticket?
Yeah, I mean, you won't hear her say it, but I think Jackie Rosen and other vulnerable Senate Democrats are perhaps most excited about this shift at the top of the ticket, right? Based on polling, Rosen was going to have to run, 5 points ahead of Biden. That's really tough in a state where Catherine Cortez Masto in 2022 won by less than 1 percentage point. And so if Harris can carry the top of the ticket, that makes Rosen's job much easier. Republicans are really excited about their recruit. They feel like some turnout dynamics can benefit them. Rural voters in particular turn out at higher rates in presidentials than midterms. They feel like that'll break for them. But Democrats are really hopeful about left-leaning independents, true independents, and then low-propensity voters who, when they do vote for Democrats. And that's exactly who the Culinary Union is going to try to turn out.
The Trump campaign is all about finding these low-propensity voters. They think that there's a lot of Trump vote out there that hasn't been activated. So it's going to be really interesting to see how that plays. Aaron Gilchrist and Gabby Birnbaum, thank you very much